Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of Sipping with Jeremy, and today we're going to be talking about Castle Key Distillery and reviewing 3 of their spirits. So Castle Key itself got its start in 2014 in Frankfort, Kentucky, but you need to go back to 1887 to talk about their facility that they are in. Back in 1887, the now Castle Key Distillery was actually the E.H. Taylor Bourbon Distillery, and it was that until, as we've talked about multiple times, Prohibition ruined everything. So after Prohibition, it went through a couple of ownership changes, but it was a deactivated distillery for a very long time. In 2014, the team of Castle Key purchased the facility and started working on rebuilding it to its former glory. 2018, Castle Key released their first spirit, which was a clear distillate, and then in 2020, they started releasing their aged spirits. So from Castle Key today, we're going to be trying their gin, their bourbon, and their rye. Let's go ahead and get started with the gin. The Castle Key Gin, properly named Roots of Ruin, kind of giving homage to the rebuilding of this historical site that they went through, is a cool mash bill of 17% yellow corn, 20% malted barley, and 63% rye. Additional botanicals are added, obviously, but that is the mash bill base, which you usually don't see from a gin. Usually they'll just say, oh, it's a neutral grain spirit or whatever, but the fact that they're putting in their mash bill into this shows that they actually pay attention at Castle Key and want to give you as much information as possible. Let's go ahead and try it out and see what it's like. With this gin, you definitely get juniper up front, but then with a lot of the more American-style gins that are coming out now, you get more of the secondary botanical characteristics that actually take more of a main stage. While juniper is there, like I said, it's up front, but then that kind of settles down. You get a lot more of the angelica root in this. You get more of the rosemary, notes of ginger as well. Also a little bit of lemon verberna and licorice. So definitely more of a savory gin. Again, I think there's a newer concept for American gins, which are trying to be really dry, but have some really nice secondary botanical characteristics to allow for fun cocktails and stuff like that. And I think this is a great example of that from Castle Key. Because again, there is some juniper up front, but it's much more of a savory style gin. So this could work in a lot of different cocktails really well. Even just like a classic gin and tonic would be really fun with this. Let's go ahead now and move on to the Castle Key Bourbon. Castle Key Small Batch Bourbon is a mash bill of 73% white corn, 17% malted barley, and 10% rye. And the one we're trying right now is from batch number 1, which was aged for 4 years. Let's go ahead and give it a try. This bourbon takes you on a fun little journey. Up front, there are some really nice, sweeter flavors. You get some caramel, you get a little bit of dried cocoa, some soft hints of vanilla. But then there's this really nice, bold rye spice in the mid palate that then allows these more unusual flavor characteristics for a bourbon to come out. I get a lot of orange zest. There's some really nice stone fruit in this as well. Still some nice rye spice. For only being 10% of the mash bill, the rye really stands out in this. But yeah, just that kind of candied orange zesty, little bit of stone fruity kind of richness on the back end, and that rye spice really balance out some of those sweeter flavors up front. So just kind of nice little journey that this takes you on. Just like the gin. Where the gin took you on a journey, this also takes you on a journey, but kind of in a reverse of what you would typically expect from a bourbon, because again, those sweeter flavors are up front, and then you get more of the fruity and savory flavors on the back end here. So just really nicely balanced, really nicely layered, fun kind of profile on this. I can definitely see if you threw an ice cube in this, some of those sweeter characteristics coming out more that were up front. But I like it how it is neat, because that orange zest is just kind of really standing out, and that's really nice in the bourbon. Now let's go ahead and move on to the Restoration Rye. Castle Key's Restoration Rye is a mash bill of 63% rye, 20% malted barley, and 17% yellow corn. And this is batch number 3, and this one is aged for 3 years. Now that mash bill might sound familiar, and that is because it is the same mash bill that we had for the gin, which is funny to me because there is a category of gin called barrel-rested gin or the old-time gin. There's multiple names for it, but barrel-aged gin is a thing. And it's one of those categories that I really dig, but at the store it doesn't do well. And I always try to get rye drinkers to try them out, because to me, I'm like, these are cousins. Rye whiskey and barrel-rested gin are cousins of each other. They have a lot of the same characteristics. And that's just funny to me that Castle Key uses the same mash bill for their rye and their gin. kind of helping prove my point that more rye drinkers should drink gin. Let's go ahead and give this Restoration Rye a try. Lots of floral rye characteristics up front here. You get some really nice like red and green apple fruit too. Do get a little bit of that candied orange, but there's also some candied anise and a little bit of like toasted cinnamon too. So there are some really nice spice notes on the back end. It is funny, I mentioned earlier that I think that barrel-aged gins and ryes are related to each other. And this one does have a lot of characteristics that our gin had before, but just kind of taken in a different way. A lot more sweetness to this one because it is barrel-aged, and there's a little bit more richness in the body, and there's a little bit more roundness in the mouthfeel. If you took the roots of Ruin Gin and barrel-aged it, and then put it right next to this rye, I think you'd have a lot of those same characteristics, and that makes sense because they have the same mash bill. Obviously with the rye you're not adding botanicals, but that aging in barrel gives it botanical-like qualities. So just a really fun, again, layering process here. It's one of those things with all the Castle Key products that I've had where I noticed that there is a layering of flavors and not everything just hits you at once. So you do have time to develop a flavor profile on your palate. And this rye is a great example of that. Alright everybody, that's going to wrap up this episode of Sipping with Jeremy. Thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and share. We will have links below where you can purchase these products and to our website. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day, and don't forget to drink well.